Welcome back to our news bulletin. The Taliban have rejected U.S. allegations of intending to break Doha peace deal. Spokesperson Suhail Shaheen's statement comes after 3 U.S. intelligence officials said Taliban have no intention to honor the deal. In a tweet, the spokesperson said the assertions by American officials are not justifiable. Disputing the intelligence officials' position, Shaheen said the peace agreement is being implemented at a satisfactory pace so far. Washington and the Taliban signed a peace agreement on February 29th to end the 19-year-old Afghan war. Meanwhile, a member of Logar Provincial Council and his 3 guards have been killed in a shooting in Afghanistan's capital, Kabul. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. Police say Nasir Ghairat was targeted near his home in the Kertanau area in the PD8. They said his driver was also wounded in the attack. Police said the incident is under investigation. Ghairat was also the former head of Logar's Provincial Council. Moving on, Prime Minister Imran Khan says Narendra Modi's Hindu supremacist ideology is targeting all minorities living in India, not just Muslims. In a tweet, Khan said such fascism will have consequences for the region and beyond. Khan said if this supremacist ideology is not checked, it will target all communities in India, including Dalits. He was referring to the forceful removal of a statue of Christ by Hindu radicals in Bangalore. After Delhi riots, the sit-ins against the Citizenship Act have seen a sharp upsurge across India. 83 people, mostly Muslims, have been killed in protests and rallies against the BJP's new law. The officials say 291 new protest sites have emerged on the model of Shaheen Bagh in the last 60 days. The officials said, like in New Delhi, these protests can lead to communal riots and violence. Hundreds of women are conducting a sit-in at a 1-kilometer stretch of a 6-lane highway crossing through Shaheen Bagh in Delhi. The protesters have refused to end the protest until the withdrawal of Citizenship Amendment Act. In India, Muslims have become refugees in their own country after being targeted by Hindu extremists in the New Delhi riots. Today, hundreds of Muslims are living in camps at the Mustafabad open prayer ground. Forced to flee their homes after being attacked by their fellow citizens, these people no longer have anywhere to go. Look at the appalling plight of New Delhi's Muslims in this report.
The rise of Hindu extremism in India has left Muslims extremely vulnerable. After being targeted in sporadic cow lynchings for years, Muslims have now been attacked for protesting against the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act. New Delhi's appointed commission has even confessed to this, revealing that the riots were one-sided and pre-planned to inflict maximum damage on Muslims. The fear of violence has now forced many Muslims to change their appearance and even their names. Over 1,000 Muslims have taken refuge in an open prayer ground in New Delhi's Mustafabad area.
I was fleeing from our burning house. By the time I went to save my child, he received some burn injuries and I took him and ran to the rooftop. Our neighbors saved us by physically pulling us from our rooftops to theirs.
One victim, Hazra Begum, remembers men chanting Hindu slogans as they hacked, battered and burned Muslims to death.
My heart aches so badly thinking of our homes. They burned everything. We are going from pillar to post, but our hearts are aching at the thought of our homes. The conditions here at the relief camp. We can't live here, but there is nothing left of our homes either. There are no clothes left to wear, nor bed sheets to sleep on.
The New Delhi hospital list discloses that over 50 people, mostly Muslims, died in last month's riots. Critics blame Indian Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu nationalist ruling party for stirring animosity against Muslims.
Italy has quarantined at least 16 million people in the Lombardy region after 14 other provinces as its coronavirus death toll tops 230. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte says the lockdown will last until early April. More in this report.
As the world scrambles to contain the fast-spreading new coronavirus, depleting resources to aid prevention pose a major challenge. South Korea has limited the number of masks each person can buy each week. Argentina has reported its first death from coronavirus, the first fatality in Latin America. More than 50 deaths were recorded during the past 24 hours in Italy, as the number of confirmed cases jumped by 1,200. The Italian Prime Minister says tough measures to contain the new coronavirus are essential.
We want to guarantee the health of our citizens. We understand that all these measures will create inconveniences. We understand that these measures will impose sacrifices, sometimes small and sometimes very big. But this is a time where we must take responsibility for ourselves. We need to understand that all of us need to adhere to the measures.
After the state of California, New York's governor has declared a state of emergency as the number of infections rise. The US is also tracking a cruise ship that may have shared crew members with a ship carrying people who tested positive for coronavirus.
We are tracking at this point a ship that may have shared crew with the Diamond Princess or the Grand Princess. And we have taken decisive action to hold until we do a full medical assessment of the crew on that ship, and will just continue to lean into this effort.
In China, a hotel being used as a quarantine facility in Quanzhou city collapsed, trapping dozens underneath. The World Health Organization says more than 100,000 people worldwide have now contracted the virus. More than 3,000 people have died in China, mainly in the Hubei province where the outbreak originated.
10 people have died while 24 remain trapped under rubble after a hotel in China's Guangzhou city collapsed. Officials say over 70 people were being quarantined for coronavirus in a 7-story building when it collapsed. The Ministry of Emergency said authorities had rescued 43 people, with 36 of them sent to a hospital. State media says the first floor of the building was under renovation. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif has accused Washington of medical terrorism against Tehran. The death toll in the country has jumped to 145, with over 6,000 novel coronavirus infections. In a tweet, Zarif said President Donald Trump is maliciously tightening illegal U.S. sanctions to drain Iran's resources. The foreign minister said Washington is closing the sources needed in the fight against coronavirus, while Iranians are dying from it. He said the world can no longer be silent as U.S. economic terrorism is supplanted by this medical terrorism. The Saudi-led coalition says it has launched a military operation against Houthi rebels in Yemen's western Hudaydah province. The coalition said it targeted Houthi sites because they pose a threat to maritime navigation and international trade in the Bab al-Mandab Strait. The coalition said they have destroyed some Houthi sites that were used for manufacturing explosive-laden boats and drones in Salif district. It also asked the civilians in the village not to approach the targeted sites until the military operation was completed. Yemen has been engulfed in an ongoing armed conflict between pro-Saudi forces led by President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi and the Houthis since 2015. The European Union has called for the immediate release of Siham Sargeva, a member of Libya's parliament kidnapped by Khalifa Haftar's forces. In a statement, the EU said it remains strongly committed to promoting equal rights and opportunities for women and men. The statement also called upon relevant authorities to assume the responsibility and investigate Sargeva's abduction. In July 2019, unidentified gunmen kidnapped Sargeva from her home in Libya's eastern city of Benghazi. They took her to an unknown location and shot her husband. In the Netherlands, 4 fugitive suspects go on trial on Monday over the killing of nearly 300 passengers and crew aboard Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. The aircraft was shot down with a Russian-made missile over eastern Ukraine in July 2014. A Dutch-led joint investigation team found 3 Russians and a Ukrainian to have plotted the attack. Their arrest warrants were issued last year. The suspects held senior positions in the pro-Russian militias in eastern Ukraine in 2014. They are still at large, and the judges could rule that the trial be held in absentia. Following the incident, the European Union had imposed sanctions on Russia. Russia has consistently denied any involvement with pro-Russian rebels in Ukraine, including providing them any financial or military support. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Welcome back to our news bulletin. Donald Trump shocked the world when he became president of the United States in 2016. But many who supported him back then aren't sticking with him 4 years later. This includes one Detroit-based Muslim cleric who has now declared his support for Democrat Party candidate Bernie Sanders. More in this report.
One of Donald Trump's most controversial campaign promises was banning Muslims from entering the US. As such, it would seem unlikely that an American Muslim would ever support him. But that's exactly what Imam Hisham al-Husseini did after believing Trump's pledge to destroy ISIS. He now regrets his decision.
So he voted to remove ISIS, to fight ISIS, mean terrorist. So I supported him. Okay. But now it looks like somehow, some way, whether he recognized or not, his policy is supporting ISIS somehow, some way. Unfortunately.
Today, Imam al-Husseini supports Democrat Party candidate Bernie Sanders, citing his humanist values. He even talks about issues faced by the working class in his Friday sermons now.
Well, actually, our hearts leaning toward Mr. Sanders. Even though he's a Jew, we are Muslims, most of us, but the values that he is asking for and calling for, it is a universal value. It's for the middle class people, for the poor people, for the change.
Sanders is known for having a strong base with the American youth, but this wasn't enough to pull him through on Super Tuesday, when he trailed behind the only other Democrat candidate in the race, Joe Biden. But if Imam al-Husseini's Islamic Center is anything to go by, American Muslims could easily emerge as strong Bernie supporters.
115 migrants have been rescued in the Mediterranean Sea as they attempted to cross into Spain from Morocco. Spanish Rescue Services said they found 2 boats stranded at sea near Malaga port. Members of the Spanish Red Cross helped migrants disembark and provided first aid at a makeshift emergency center. Interior Ministry says overall sea arrivals of irregular migrants since February 29th have decreased by 29% compared to the same time last year. Authorities said migrants have changed routes to reach Europe due to increased security in the Mediterranean Sea. Thousands of asylum seekers from Africa and the Middle East embark on the dangerous journey by sea every year to make it to Europe. In Pakistan, torrential rainstorms have wreaked havoc in certain parts of the country, leaving 24 people dead and dozens more injured. Heavy rains have lashed areas near the Afghan border since Thursday. A local relief official said 14 children and 3 women were among the dead in the northwest Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. In a statement, the National Disaster Management Authority confirmed those deaths, with 3 more killings in southwest Balochistan province. In the worst single incident, 5 children were killed when the roof of their house collapsed in northern Dargai town. Rain also damaged over 50 houses, while snowfall blocked several roads in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. 22 people have been killed in an accident on road connecting Syrian capital Damascus to Homs province. Interior Ministry says 70 others were injured as brake failure caused a fuel tanker to crash into 15 vehicles and 2 buses. The ministry said the buses were carrying several Iraqi passengers. The official said victims are believed to include Shiite pilgrims visiting holy shrines near the capital. Footage aired on state media showed rescue teams deployed around the mangled remains of the vehicles. The death toll from flooding and mudslides across Brazil's Sao Paulo state has risen to 40. The government says the remains of 25 people have been discovered in towns of Guruha, Santos, and São Vicente. Authorities say rescue workers are combing the towns for the 40 people who are still missing. They say most of them are residents of the hillside favela of Wela Baiana, where homes fell apart under the mudslides. The government has announced a shipment of 21 tons of supplies for about 250 displaced families living in temporary shelters. The local government says 2 firefighters were killed in rescue attempts in Sao Paulo state. Meteorological Institute of Brazil says Sao Paulo registered its most intense rainfall in 77 years during February this year. International Women's Day is being marked around the globe today. The day celebrates women's achievements and increases visibility in the public sphere while calling out inequality. More in this report.
Hundreds of thousands of women have gathered in cities across the world to mark International Women's Day. In Peru's capital, Lima, thousands of women called for justice to be done for female victims of violence and murders in the country.
We are all demanding justice, equality, for there to be no more exploitation of women, no more femicides, murders. We are looking for justice for all women.
In Mexico, women performed an anthem condemning the killings of women, channeling anger along with hope for justice. Femicides have risen 137% in the last 5 years, and recent cases have drawn outrage for their brutality.
I wake up every day and I see on Facebook, Twitter, on the news, on the radio. I get into a taxi and I hear that bodies keep on being found, women who are killed. So this is a feeling of anguish that I have, of anger. But I also have a lot of hope that this movement could blossom.
In the Spanish capital of Madrid, dozens of women performed A Rapist in Your Path. The song has gone viral after it originated in Chile, turning into a mighty global war against sexual violence. In the UK, Duchess of Sussex Meghan Markle encouraged school children to support women's empowerment, social justice, and gender equality issues. International Women's Day has occurred for well over a century, with the first gathering in 1911 supported by over 1 million people.
In Afghanistan, a business venture has not only given women a chance to be independent, it is also making sure to save the environment. Zero-carbon mobile food carts in Kabul are a delicious treat for residents. More in this report.
Covered with a full-body garment, 30-year-old Maryam Mohammadi was once in Pakistan as a refugee for many years to escape the war in Afghanistan. Now in Kabul, she sells dairy and food and is the only breadwinner for her family. She says this job is very crucial to improve life and hopes to continue working.
I'm so tired of conflicts and bombings. If there will be a peace and stability in our country, then no family will be left unattended, and the children and the rest of the people will not get killed anymore. We just want lasting peace in Afghanistan.
27-year-old Farhad Wajdi, who founded this rickshaw business, aims to expand it all over the country to provide job opportunities for more women.
Right now, we have manufactured 25 zero-carbon food carts, and we have employed 2 women on each cart. So it becomes like 50 women so far. We have employed 50 women so far. And this year, we're expanding our food carts to 100. And hopefully, we can expand our operations in other parts of Afghanistan where women are treated really, really badly.
Afghan society for a long time excluded women from social and economic opportunities. But the Taliban's approach have recently been more moderate, as they say Islam gives women rights in areas such as business and ownership. This has encouraged businesses like Banu's Kitchen to flourish to eradicate women's miseries.
Musaka Fernanda, a farmer in Angola's rural south, works at land to feed her 9 children. But with dramatic shifts in the weather and her husband far away in the city, it's an ever harder task to put food on the table. More in this report.
First there was the drought, and then came torrential rain and severe flooding. Southern Angola's farmland has been devastated. By now, Musaka Fernanda's crops should have been towering over her head. But the 47-year-old farmer has little to harvest. To her, climate change means hunger.
We've been waiting for rain for 6 months. 6 months without rain, and before that we had winter. When the rains came, we were so thankful. We were relieved. But they came too hard, and then we had no way of tending to our crops. We were not able to go to the fields.
With the threat of famine looming, Musaka alone is responsible for feeding her 9 children. Like many men in the region, her husband moved to the city in search of work.
He left because of hunger. There was a time when he used to buy food for the children. They used to share the work. But when the hunger got bad, he decided to go.
And it's not just the mothers. Humanitarian group World Vision finds that their daughters also live the consequences of climate change.
Because of families being separated or abandoned, we find a lot of families with a single parent, so it's the girls that end up helping their mothers in one way or another. So they are likely to stop studying. They first need to provide for their basic needs.
Musaka's 2 eldest daughters dropped out of school to help out at home. But when her eldest fell pregnant, Musaka asked her to move out and live with the father.
My mother said, "You have to get married because you can't burden me with this. I'm already struggling enough with all of you. I cannot suffer more with you, your baby and your boyfriend."
It was a difficult decision, but Musaka had few alternatives. 45 million people face famine in southern Africa, according to the UN. And 8 of them are dependent on Musaka's daily efforts, as she continues to work the land alone and in the face of climate change.
Shares in the energy-dependent Gulf have plunged to multi-year lows today after OPEC and its allies failed to clinch a deal on production cuts. All of the Gulf markets also tumbled as oil prices continue being hit by the novel coronavirus over the past month. The Saudi stock market dived by 7.7% minutes from the opening bell after oil prices closed near a 4-year low on Friday. Shares in oil giant Saudi Aramco dropped below their IPO price of $8.85 for the first time, losing some 6%. The slide on the Saudi market came amid reports of high-level arrests in the ruling family. The Dubai financial market shed 8.5% at one point, its worst decline in 6 years before recovering slightly. Its sister market in Abu Dhabi also lost 7%, while the Qatar Stock Exchange dropped 3.5%. The tiny markets of Bahrain slid 3% and Oman dropped by 1.1%. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.